Just as I'm about to get started on the latest renovation, we got totally snowed in, meaning I couldn't pop out and get all the bits I needed from Screwfix to start ripping out the rooms. But today I'm ripping out the dining room, which will eventually become an open plan kitchen diner with island and massive bifold doors on the back opening out onto the garden space. After emptying the easy bits out of the room, I then had to tackle a beautiful grandfather clock that the previous owner kindly left for us. I don't really know anything about grandfather clocks, but this one was made in Chesterfield and online it's worth a few £1,000s, which is incredible, so we'll find a nice place for it in the new home layout. I slowly figured out how to take the hood off the clock to begin moving it, although it was still incredibly heavy, so I had to pivot the clock side to side to try and get it out of the dining room into a safe space, away from the dust and destruction that I was about to unleash on the entire room. Then I realised that you can literally take the main head unit out, which is the most delicate bit, and it's quite heavy, leaving a really lightweight wooden shell, which was super easy to lift and move. And then it's time for the best bit, filling up the steamer and starting to strip all of the wallpaper and beginning to finally take the room apart after all of this time. While I was taking all the wallpaper off, I could see that there was this kind of curved bit of the plaster on the wall and I had no idea why it was at an angle, and as I started to really look into it I realised that none of the back plaster was actually attached to the wall whatsoever. So after realising that I needed to take all of the room back to brick, I then started taking all the awful wallpaper off of the ceiling, which was a really hard task, and the wallpaper stripper actually made things worse here, so I had to do the whole thing dry. We are slowly getting there. We've taken all of the wallpaper off for the majority, apart from the walls that are going to be knocked out. The ceiling took absolutely forever. They'd wallpapered the ceiling, which has also covered loads of cracks. And I did wonder, because there is nice plaster, but clearly the plasterboards aren't attached properly, because between every single one there's a huge crack that runs down the entire length of the room. So it kind of would be worth saving, but I'm tempted just to take the entire plasterboard ceiling off and just do it again, knowing that it's been done properly. I need to take all of the plaster off this wall and go back to brick, because then I can start to insulate this. I also need to cut out a door as well, which is going to be part of the new utility, part of the phase 2 garage that we're going to do. Also need to take off all of the coving, so I've done it behind here. I've also found, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, probably not, there's also some kind of water damp issue in that corner over there. Clearly something's leaking, probably from the roof of the garage or something like that. But one of the things that I've learned is that it's very slow and very monotonous and feels like it's taking forever. And I think when you're taking on a huge project like this and you're doing an entire house from top to bottom, and if you're doing it yourself, it can be really overwhelming. And all you've got to do is break it down task by task, and as long as you keep ticking off each of those individual tasks, it becomes manageable. When you look at it and you say, how on earth am I going to do a huge loft renovation and do the whole brand new extension on the front and completely rip out the room and put in a brand new kitchen? Well, it starts with just stripping the wallpaper, getting a hammer and literally hitting the wall and taking the plaster off, slowly starting to prise the skirting boards and the architraves off the wall, and all of a sudden, when you start to tick off all of these tasks individually, celebrate each win, and before you know it, you've made some really good progress. And that's how I always approach any kind of large task, is just celebrate the small wins. There's also a degree of people who just can't bother to do this kind of thing. You know, there's lots of different types of people in the world, and I don't mind doing this because I know what the reward is going to be at the end of it, which is a beautiful home, and in this specific room, a really nice kitchen. So the effort and the time, and it's a Saturday night at filming this at the moment, it's a good thing to be doing this, and it'll really pay off in the long term when the room is done. It looks amazing, and you'll be able to see later in the series how incredible this room is going to look. It'll be nice to go back to this moment, looking at where the room was today versus where it's going to be in the future. So yeah, if you're feeling a little bit anxious about a big project or whatever it is that you're trying to do, or something's very overwhelming, the best thing to do is just take it step by step. And one of the big things that I've learned is that everything is figure-outable. There's no problem that can't be solved for any kind of house project. And if you don't know how to do it, I'm sure YouTube does, or even Google does as well. And if none of those two know, then go and find a builder, get a contract, and then get someone who can help you, give you some advice. What I've noticed is that you've got a team of people around you. So I've got the architects, we've got the structural engineers, we've got the council and building control as well, who's kind of like a teacher, and they tell you what to do and what's best practice. So there's loads of help around to do all this kind of stuff, and you're never really on your own. And that can be applied to anything in life. If you have this big overwhelming task, just break it down, rely on the experts around you, and slowly but surely you will make progress, and you'll start to see, even if you can't see it right now, in the longer term, you can step back and look at this room when it wasn't even touched compared to where it is now. We're making good progress, and it's only been a few days. This is the progress so far. So all of this has been stripped back. It was literally just wallpaper, and there's a boarded up bottom of a fireplace there, which also goes into the basement, which I need to have a look at. We've finally got all of the wallpaper off the ceiling as well, but unfortunately it's pretty much destroyed, so I think it's all gonna have to come down. I could try sanding it off, but I just think it'd be a waste of time, and there's also just tons of cracks in the plaster as well, so I think it's just worth reboarding it, doing it properly. You can see that like every single, probably a bit hard to see in the light, but every single kind of stretch of board has got cracks in it, so I think we just need to redo the job from the beginning. Interesting things. So I found an interesting bit of conduit in the wall and this kind of like metal tie. I have tested it and I'm picking up some kind of voltage in here, so I've just left it for the minute. There is some kind of like rubber or PVC cable just here, as well as some kind of like metal wiring. I don't know whether it's, I doubt it's really old electrics. I can't imagine them nailing it into the wall, but better be safe than sorry. So when it's daytime and I don't need the light on, we'll have a look at what that one is. And then we've also found some kind of damp, wet problem here. It could be from the roof of the garage, which is on the other side of the wall, which I know the previous owners had some issues with, but that wall is kind of wet to the touch, and you touch it and there's black mold, so I need to have a proper look there. And you can kind of see on the plasterboard that it definitely looks a little bit wet, so I think another reason to, you can kind of see it all here, like the patterns as well, another reason just to take the ceiling off completely and not only fix all the cracks, but also look at the damp problem. Then also, so this wall, this entire, well, kind of that's gonna stay there. We're gonna board up the door, and then the kind of new kitchen is gonna go along this wall here with a nice island in the middle. So this wall here is effectively gonna come out, which is on the other side of that is the current kitchen at the moment. Now, having a little bit of an investigative look, you can see here that there is the joist for the room above this, and then that's the joist for the bathroom, which is above the kitchen. And unfortunately, both of them are slotted into the wall. So this is basically a structural wall here, meaning we can't just knock it through and kind of do it ourselves. So we're gonna have to get a structural engineer, get all the calculations in place, and then effectively potentially keep a post here in the wall for the support. And then this just becomes a huge steel that's going to have to go across there to support all of the floors above, which means more money, means more cost, means potentially getting some builders in, because you effectively have to get these kind of steel acro props kind of going up, and then put a big bit of wood across to support both this side and also the other side of the wall before you can start knocking it through, and then putting the steel in. So big job, definitely a lot of money involved with that as well to make the kitchen happen. So good, at least we're kind of figuring stuff out and seeing how the house is constructed. Otherwise it seems pretty solid. It's just a mishmash of kind of covered up problems over the years that have never been truly solved. So this is really now just trying to find all the problems and fix them. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of the plaster off the wall, definitely take the ceiling off, and then just restart again in this room, properly insulate it. Need to insulate the floor as well from the basement, and effectively prepare the room for the steels. And now I've taken this corner of the room apart just to see what's happening. The joists are really good. They're like double the size of the ones in the basement on the ground floor, so that's really, really good. This is a voltage pen, and you can see here there's tons of cables. So the grey cabling kind of here is slightly newer, and the black one, my knowledge is very basic of electrics, but you'd look at the black stuff and you'd assume that that is very old wiring. Now, this can test if there's voltage in a cable, and you can see here there's a bare end that I've just found there. As I've pulled down this bit of the plasterboard and revealed all of this, I thought, okay, black cable, let's have a look. And you can literally see it's a live cable. So if those ends started touching on the cable, that in theory could then start to cause a bit of a spark, it could cause a fire, and it's a fire risk. So discovering stuff like this is horrifying, but also good at the same time, because you can really find the problems and effectively make the house safe. That's worrying. So I think it's a good decision to take this roof apart, because we can start to discover what horrors have been put inside over a mishmash of rewires over time. Actually, false alarm. I don't know why it was picking up a voltage, maybe because it was wrapped around the other wires, but they are literally just two dead ends. I kind of pulled it out and followed it, and I'm like, hang on, these definitely aren't connected, and now that's all been removed, so false alarm, and there's no problem, which is good. Change of plan. So I've been using this club hammer, I think it's called, and then a kind of bolster chisel that you use for bricks to kind of hammer and get all of the plaster off. It's working, but it's taking forever, and my hands are absolutely killing me as well. So I went to Screwfix and got a really good SDS drill, and this is kind of like a hammer drill, and this goes in and out really fast and makes the job a lot easier, but it's eating through batteries like nothing. So I've got really small batteries on this one, but it should help. Just making things somewhat easier. There's some really hard bits of plaster and cement mixture and all sorts of stuff that's really hard to remove, so this will really help get through it, and also just super useful for the whole renovation, because there's lots of bits of concrete I need to get through. I need to do some really some quite big holes and drilling into concrete, so this will really help compared to the tiny hammer drill that I've got. So let's see how it goes. Right, this is a progress check-in. So the SDS drill has been very, very, very useful. That really useful thing right there on the floor has been absolutely fantastic. And we basically got all of this wall I did by hand, and that took a long time. And then I started using the SDS drill there. All along the top, I've kind of left a little bit here because all of that French patio door, that's coming out, and we're going to put a big steel in the top and then put a nice big kind of bifold slider type thing in there as well, so I don't particularly need to do it, but I did just have a look and we've got concrete lintels just above it, which is always a good sign. And then we're taking all of this out. The chimney breast is going to be coming out as well. I did have a look, so it's kind of half plaster and then half kind of like a chipboard type material that's degraded because it just crumbles when you touch it. Unfortunately, there's no nice fireplace behind this. It's literally just the chimney breast, and there's kind of some kind of big flue that comes in the basement all the way up to the top. So all of that's coming out at some point in the future. I think we're going to get some builders to do that because it's a bit of a bigger job. And then we've done this wall as well here. So we've literally just got to do this bit of the wall here, and then all of this is coming out, so I've not even bothered taking the wallpaper off this bit, so I just need to remove the radiator. And then again we need another steel going along there to support all of the joists that go into the wall, and then tidy the room up, and I think we're ready to start knocking through at some point in the future. So there's not really much we can do at the moment. We need to wait for the structural engineer to do all the calculations to get the steels in. So the task today is to take down this old shed, because the big steel is going to go on the back of the house and we're going to put in the new bifolds, and this shed is in the way at the moment, so I need to get rid of this. Today's task in the glorious sun in the spring is to take this down. There's one thing that creeps me out more, it's definitely spiders. I'm not hugely terrified of them, but I just feel like in small spaces like this, and there's big cobwebs everywhere, it just goes through me, because then I know there'll be one hiding somewhere, and I just have no doubt that today one's going to come out and surprise me. So I've just got to accept the inevitable that it's going to happen. This is a great example. Are you ready for this? It just goes through me. Ugh. Maybe it doesn't come as well on camera. There's just thick, like sack-like cobwebs. Oh, it's disgusting. It goes right through me.